That morning started with turbulence and not just the flight kind. My plane from Chicago barely made it out of the gate before the trip was scrapped due to some boardroom squabble that apparently didn't need me after all. I didn't mind, honestly. I figured getting home early would be a good surprise. Maybe I'd pick up breakfast on the way, take Lauren out, make the most of a day we weren't expecting together. Funny how reality has its own plans. The Uber dropped me off around 8:30 a.m. The sky over Omaha was gray and cloud-heavy, the kind of sky that makes the whole street feel like it's holding its breath. I unlocked the door quietly, almost guiltily, like I was sneaking into my own house. I wasn't expecting confetti or fanfare, but I figured Lauren might still be asleep, maybe sipping coffee in the sunroom like she often did when she had the morning off. But what hit me first was the silence. The house didn't sound right. I know that probably sounds weird, but you get used to the hum of your own home, the faint buzz of the fridge, the squeak of the old floorboard near the hallway, even the occasional tap-tap of Lauren pacing while on the phone. That morning? Nothing. Just stillness. And something about it crawled under my skin. Then I walked into the kitchen. 2 mugs on the table. One was our usual, hers specifically. White ceramic with a tiny crack on the side, a faint coffee stain around the rim. I'd washed it more times than I could count. The other one, though, was unfamiliar, navy blue, sleek, modern. Not part of our set. At first, I figured maybe she'd picked up a new one. But then I noticed the lipstick. A bright red smudge pressed right against the rim. It hit me like a jolt. Lauren didn't wear red lipstick. Not once in the 10 years we'd been together. Nude shades, maybe some soft pink when we went to a wedding or date night, but never red. It wasn't her style. She used to joke that it made her look like a clown. I stared at the mug for a long time. Time stretched. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall, and every tick felt like a heartbeat out of place. I reached for it slowly, almost afraid of what I might feel, heat, maybe indicating it had just been used. It was lukewarm. Recently used, but not fresh. Maybe a friend stopped by, I told myself. Maybe her sister, maybe someone from her book club. I wanted that to be the explanation. I needed it to be. But the feeling in my gut was different. Off. It wasn't just the mug, it was the air in the room, heavy like a confession waiting to drop. I called out her name just once. No answer. The hallway creaked under my feet as I walked toward the bedroom. Our bedroom door was half closed, light leaking in through the slats in the blinds. I pushed it open slowly. The bed looked like someone had slept in it, but not both of us. The covers were rumpled on my side. Lauren's side was neat, barely touched. Her pillow fluffed untouched. It didn't make sense. She never made the bed that perfectly in the morning. Not unless someone was coming over. Or unless someone else had been in it. That's when I saw it. Half tucked under the pillow, mine, not hers, was something dark and coiled. I pulled it out slowly. A bracelet. Braided leather, black and brown, with a small silver clasp. Not mine. Not anything I'd ever worn or owned. Too masculine for Lauren, too worn to be new. It looked lived in, something someone wore daily. I turned it over in my fingers like it might explain itself, like it might say, here's what you've been missing. And then I heard the water. The shower was running. My chest tightened. I stood there, holding the bracelet like it was a loaded question, listening to the sound of water spraying onto tile. The bathroom door was shut but not locked. I could have walked in, confronted her right then. I didn't. Instead, I put the bracelet back under the pillow exactly where I found it. I stepped back, sat on the edge of the bed, waited. Lauren came out a few minutes later in her robe, a towel wrapped around her hair. She jumped a little when she saw me. Adam, she said, blinking in surprise. You're back. Meeting got canceled, I said simply. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Wow, okay. That's unexpected. Her tone was off. I knew it too well. She always used that sing-song edge when she was flustered but trying to act normal. Like she'd rehearsed a line and now had to ad-lib. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. Not accusing. Not even angry. Just present. Watching. She glanced toward the kitchen. Claire stopped by earlier. Wanted to talk about her wedding stuff. She brought her own coffee. That mug's hers. I raised an eyebrow. Claire wears red lipstick? Lauren hesitated. Just for a beat? She does now. Some influencer thing, I think. And the bracelet? I asked quietly. Her face shifted slightly. Oh, right? Yeah, someone must have left it. Remember those Airbnb guests next door? They came by last night, asking for help with the Wi-Fi password. One of them sat down here. Must have dropped it. I meant to return it. She said it all so quickly, like each word was a step across thin ice. One wrong move and the whole thing would crack. I nodded slowly. Okay. That was all I said. Okay. I didn't argue, didn't press further. Just stood up, walked past her, and told her I needed to unpack. She smiled too wide. Of course. I'll make you some breakfast. Not hungry, I said. I went upstairs and closed the office door behind me. And I sat there, staring at the closed laptop on the desk, my reflection faint in the screen. Something had shifted in me. Something that wouldn't unshift. It wasn't the lipstick or the bracelet or the lies. It was the feeling that I'd crossed some invisible line, the place between this is my life and I no longer recognize what's in front of me. I wasn't ready to accuse her of anything. Not yet. But I also wasn't the same man who'd left for Chicago the day before. The world hadn't ended. But something had begged asterisk end to crack. I don't know how long I sat in my car that morning, parked outside the office. The engine was still running, but the AC had gone stale. I didn't want to go in. I didn't want to face anyone or anything until I could figure out what the hell was happening in my own home. The image of that leather bracelet was stuck in my mind like a thorn, small but impossible to ignore. It's strange how fast your brain can rewrite history when you give it a reason to look back. Suddenly, everything I'd once brushed aside came rushing in, loud and undeniable. The excuses, the subtle shifts, the way her habits started changing in quiet little increments. It felt like I was watching a timeline unravel in reverse, every detail now threaded with suspicion. I remember the gym thing starting maybe 5 months ago. Out of nowhere, Lauren decided to get serious about her fitness. She'd never been obsessed with working out. She was always more of a morning walk, occasional yoga class kind of person. But then it turned into nightly workouts. Always after dinner, always just an hour, and always alone. At first, I supported it. I thought it was healthy. People grow, right? We take up new habits, new routines. And Lauren said she was finally prioritizing herself again. It clears my head, she said one night as she laced up brand new running shoes. Helps me decompress. But that hour often stretched into 2. Sometimes 2.5. And she'd come home with this strange energy, not tired, not relaxed. Restless, almost charged. Her cheeks flushed, her voice pitched just a bit higher than normal. Like she'd just come back from something exciting. Like she was coming down from something, not exertion, but adrenaline. I noticed other things too. Her playlists had changed. I saw them once, synced on the home Bluetooth. Slow, sultry stuff. Not workout tracks. The kind of music you'd hear during a late-night drive with someone you wanted to impress. That was when I started looking closer. She was more protective of her phone. That was subtle at first too, just small things. She used to leave it on the counter while we cooked dinner or face up on the nightstand while we watched TV. But lately it was always with her. In her hand, in her back pocket, on silent, face down. Even in the shower, she'd bring it into the bathroom. When I teased her once about being married to her phone, she laughed and said work was crazy. Too many client emails, she'd said. It never stops. But the Lauren I knew hated checking email after hours. I'd seen her snooze notifications for days. And then there were the missed dates. Dinners forgotten. A movie night she bailed on last minute because the team had a deadline. Even her birthday was weird this year. She didn't want a party, didn't want a dinner, just said she needed time to reflect. Reflect? That wasn't like her. She loved being celebrated. She always made a big deal out of other people's birthdays. Mine especially. But this time she asked for space. And like a fool, I gave it. I remember that night. I made her a homemade dinner, her favorite, salmon with garlic potatoes and grilled asparagus. I set the table with candles. She came home, barely smiled, said she wasn't hungry, claimed she'd eaten with coworkers. Her clothes smelled faintly of wine. Not the kind we had at home. The expensive stuff. Even her wardrobe had changed. New lingerie I never saw her wear. She stopped wearing her usual cozy pajamas and started opting for sleek silk shorts and camisoles even when we weren't in asterisk mate. Said it was more breathable. But I'd seen the tags. The price tags. She was dressing for someone. I just hadn't realized it wasn't me. Looking back, it all lined up in this sinister little pattern. Her growing distance. The stories that didn't quite connect. Her strange irritation when I'd ask casual questions. It had all been there. Right under my nose. Wrapped in the soft cloth of familiarity. One night a few weeks ago, I got up to grab water around 1 a.m. I caught her whispering in the guest bathroom. The light was off. The door cracked. I only heard a fragment. Don't text me right now. I didn't say anything. I waited until she came out, phone in hand, eyes wide. She flinched when she saw me. Hey, she said quickly. Just my mom. She couldn't sleep. She gets anxious sometimes. I nodded. Didn't press. But it gnawed at me. because I knew how Lauren talked to her mother. Warm, exasperated, fast. That voice I heard in the bathroom? It was careful, measured. Not how she talked to family. And then the lies got sloppier. 2 weekends ago, she told me she was driving to Lincoln to see an old college friend who just had a baby. I was happy for her, told her to enjoy the visit. But she forgot to log out of our shared calendar. That night, while she was visiting, a dinner reservation popped up on my screen for a high-end sushi place downtown, made under her name, for 2. When I asked her about it the next morning, she didn't blink. Said her friend had insisted on sushi and that her husband had joined them. They're foodies, she said with a smirk. She's still breastfeeding but couldn't resist. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something in her voice felt performed, like an actress reciting lines she'd rehearsed in the mirror. Even the int asterisk Macy between us had changed. We hadn't been physical in weeks. Months, maybe, depending on how you define it. Every time I tried, she was too tired, or not in the right headspace. Once she even pulled away and apologized. Said she just wasn't feeling connected lately. I blamed myself. Thought maybe I was working too much, being distant. I took her on a weekend trip. I planned small surprises. She thanked me, smiled, and drifted even further away. Now, as I sat in my office pretending to look at spreadsheets, I realized what had been eating away at me for months wasn't just paranoia. It was clarity. My instincts weren't overreactions, they were alarms, and I had silenced them over and over again. Around noon, I left the office. Told my assistant I had to deal with a plumbing issue at home. She gave me a polite nod, unaware that my entire foundation was starting to crumble. I drove back to the house with this strange hollow feeling, like I was walking into a place that still looked like my life but no longer felt like it. The kitchen was spotless. The 2 mugs were gone. Washed, dried, put away like they'd never existed. Same with the bracelet. Nowhere in sight. I checked the drawer by the bed, the bathroom, even the laundry hamper. Nothing. It was like Lauren had walked through the house with a sieve, filtering out any piece of evidence that didn't belong. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom and stared. It looked like a hotel. The bed was freshly made, the air faintly scented with her new perfume. Sweet. Expensive. Not the one I used to buy her every Christmas. I sat on the edge of the bed, breathing in the unfamiliar quiet. I was trying to summon logic, trying to give her one more benefit of the doubt. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't losing my mind. I was just finally facing what I'd already known. My marriage wasn't just strained. It was unraveling. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I wanted to stop it. Something had shifted in me. A slow turning of the wheel. I no longer needed to find out if something was wrong. I needed to find out how wrong it really was. Because if there was more to the gym trips, the late nights, the missing int asterisk Macy, then the woman I loved was already gone. And I was just now realizing I'd been living with a stranger. It happened on a Thursday. Late spring, warm evening. Sun still hanging low like it didn't want to set just yet. I was supposed to be at the gym, but I wasn't in the mood to be around people. After the week I'd had, after the coffee mugs, the bracelet, and all the excuses still echoing in my head, I couldn't lift a single thing if I tried. But I told Lauren I'd be gone until 8:30. She gave me her usual smile, quick and tight, and kissed me like she was grateful to have the house to herself. That's what tipped me off. She didn't ask when I'd be back. She always used to ask. So instead of going to the gym, I drove around for a bit. Parked near the neighborhood library. Let the engine idle while I stared out the windshield, trying to decide what kind of man I was becoming. Suspicious, secretive, quietly unraveling. Not the version of me I liked. Not the version Lauren married. But the more I tried to hold onto the truth, the more slippery it became. At 7 p.m., I made the decision. I turned the car around and headed home. As I pulled into our street, a car I didn't recognize was parked in front of the house. Black, tinted windows, expensive looking. It wasn't one of our neighbors. As I slowed to a crawl, the driver noticed me. He pulled off abruptly, tires crunching against the gravel like he couldn't leave fast enough. I got a good look at him just for a second. Early 30s maybe, dark hair, sunglasses even though the sun was barely out. He didn't look at me, he looked through me. Like I was an obstacle in a game he already knew he was winning. That's when I knew. I didn't need a confession anymore. I didn't need another story about Airbnb guests or Claire's lipstick. I'd already crossed the line where doubt ends and knowing begins. Inside, the house smelled different. Not bad, just different. The kind of smell that didn't belong to either of us. Subtle cologne. Masculine. Sharp. It lingered in the hallway like a ghost that had just slipped through the walls. I moved through the house slowly. Quietly. There were 2 towels hanging in the bathroom, both damp. One was mine. The other wasn't. I opened the laundry bin. A wrinkled button-up shirt sat on top, definitely not mine. Wrong size. Wrong brand. Still warm. In our bedroom, the sheets had been pulled back and hastily straightened again. Lauren was downstairs, humming to herself in the kitchen as if nothing had happened at all. I walked back to the living room, heart pounding harder than I cared to admit. I sat on the couch, stared at the blank TV screen, and waited for her to notice me. When she did, her eyes flicked up for only a second. "You're back early," she said. "Yeah. Gym was packed," I replied. I didn't blink. Didn't smile. Did we have company? She paused just a breath too long. "No, why?" I shrugged. "Smells different in here. Cologne or something." She gave me that same half-smile I'd come to dread. "Oh. I sprayed some of that sample cologne you got in the mail last week. I was cleaning the hallway closet, found it in the drawer." I nodded. She didn't ask me anything else. That night, after she went to bed, I stayed downstairs. My laptop sat on the coffee table, same place as always. Hers was plugged into the wall, open slightly careless, really? Lauren guarded that thing like it held state secrets. Tonight, though, it was right there. Waiting. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe I needed confirmation. Maybe I needed something I could point to and say, "See? You're not crazy. This is real." Her laptop was unlocked. And that's when the floor gave out. At first, there was nothing. Her desktop was neat. Her browser cleared. But one thing she hadn't closed, her messaging app. It popped open the second I clicked the trackpad. I didn't recognize the name Michael. No last name. Just Michael speech balloon and a long, long scroll of messages. I read them. And then I read them again. They weren't vague. They weren't innocent. They weren't jokes that could be dismissed. They were real. Photos. Inside jokes. Plans for dinners. Strings of "I miss you" and "last night was perfect" and "when can I see you again?" The most recent message had been sent while I was upstairs brushing my teeth the night before. "Michael, God, I hate sneaking around. But I'd do it 100 more times just to wake up next to you again. Lauren, soon. Promise. Just a little longer." He has no idea. My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe. I sat there frozen, not just with anger but with disbelief. This wasn't just some vague emotional affair. This was happening. This was active. This was now. It was in our house. In our bed. In our timeline. It wasn't theoretical. It wasn't past tense. It was present, ongoing, immediate. I scrolled back. 3 weeks ago, a hotel reservation in her name. A message with a screenshot asterisk T of the room details. I thought she was at a conference. She told me she was at a conference. I clicked through more messages. Every one of them drove the knife deeper. She joked about how clueless I was. How predictable. She even used emojis, hearts, winks, the kind of thing she used to send me back when we were newlyweds. I felt sick. At some point, I stood up. Didn't know what I was looking for. Air, maybe? Something to hold onto. Something real. I walked outside barefoot, stood on the cold front steps under the porch light. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same. The house behind me was no longer home. Eventually, I walked back inside. Closed the laptop. Didn't say a word. I climbed into bed beside her. She stirred a little, mumbled something I couldn't make out. Rolled over. I lay there for hours, staring at the ceiling. My mind was a carousel of voices, images, what-ifs, what-nows. The truth didn't give me clarity. It gave me silence. Heavy, total silence. I didn't rage. I didn't wake her up and demand answers. I just shut off. Because what can you even say when the proof is right there in front of you, spelled out in timestamped text messages? You don't argue with proof. You don't debate it. You just accept that something has been broken beyond repair. And in that quiet, in that numb kind of stillness, I knew the person lying next to me had made a choice. Over and over again. And the version of her I thought I loved? She didn't exist anymore. Maybe she never did. A week passed, but time didn't move. Not really. Each day bled into the next, a blur of routine and silence that stretched and curled into itself. I still woke up at the same time, still made coffee, still drove to work, but it all felt like I was playing a part in someone else's life. A version of me going through the motions while the real me watched from a distance. Lauren acted like nothing had changed. She was even warmer, more attentive, almost performative in how perfect she suddenly became. She packed my lunch twice that week, something she hadn't done in years. Left sticky notes on the fridge with hearts and love you, in handwriting I barely recognized anymore. She even suggested we take a weekend trip soon, just the two of us, as if we were some couple in a commercial. I nodded, smiled, said sounds good, but I didn't feel any of it. Inside, I was somewhere else entirely, counting down days, mapping out every detail of what I knew, watching her the way you watch a stranger trying to impersonate someone familiar. And then Denver happened. The trip had been scheduled for months, a business development conference, the kind where executives drink bad hotel coffee and pretend to care about digital transformation. I didn't want to go, not in the state I was in, but it was necessary. My firm was courting a new client, and I was the face of the pitch. Lauren barely blinked when I told her I was flying out Thursday evening. Let me know if you want me to drop you at the airport, she said, not looking up from her phone. It's fine, I told her. I'll drive. She nodded. Went back to texting. I packed light. Left my ring on. I didn't usually wear it at conferences, mostly because I hated the way it pressed against my finger when I was typing or shaking hands. But this time I wore it intentionally. A quiet, heavy reminder. Friday morning, I was at the hotel conference center early, waiting at the cafe near the main hall for my colleague Ben. The coffee line was long. I stood there, arms crossed, checking my watch, mentally rehearsing bullet points for our meeting. The place was buzzing, suits, blazers, tablet-carrying people with name tags that screamed networking more than anything else. And that's when I heard it. Laughter. Familiar. Quick, warm, a little too loud. I turned slightly. The sound came from across the atrium near the side lounge where small groups had started to gather for early morning workshops. At first, I only saw the back of her head, chestnut hair, shoulder-length, curled at the ends. She was mid-sentence, animated, gesturing with her coffee cup. Then she turned just enough for me to see her face. Lauren. My heart thudded once, just once, but hard. She was standing in a circle of professionals, maybe 5 or 6 people, all engaged and smiling like they knew her. She looked confident. Relaxed. She wore a navy blazer I'd never seen before, fitted and sharp. A silver necklace I didn't recognize. She laughed again. Tilted her head toward the man beside her. Touched his elbow. The man was tall, clean-cut, maybe mid-30s. Blue lanyard, no ring. I didn't recognize him, but I didn't need to. His body language told me everything. So did hers. I stood rooted in place. I could have walked away. I should have. But I didn't. Instead, I stepped to the side, just enough to be in her line of sight. I didn't say a word. She saw me. It took her a few seconds to process what she was looking at. Her smile faltered. Eyes widened just for a beat. She froze, mid-laugh, like someone had pressed pause on a film. One hand gripped her coffee cup a little tighter. The other dropped from the man's elbow. The conversation around her kept going, oblivious. We locked eyes. I didn't flinch. I raised my left hand slightly. Not a wave, just a slow, deliberate motion, fingers resting by my collar, thumb brushing the edge of my wedding band. Her expression cracked. A tiny shake of her head. Barely perceptible. I gave her nothing. Not a word. Not a look of anger. Just acknowledgement. Just truth. Then I turned. I walked away. Didn't run. Didn't look back. Just walked. Through the cafe. Through the glass doors. Past the vendors setting up, the hotel lobby buzzing with early arrivals. Out into the Denver air, cool and dry and unfamiliar. I stood on the curb, called a rideshare, and waited. My chest felt tight, not from panic, but from relief. The kind you feel when the final curtain drops and the show is over. No more pretending. No more explaining. She saw me. I saw her. And that was that. Back in the hotel room, I took off my ring and set it on the nightstand. Watched it sit there like it didn't belong to me anymore. My phone buzzed 30 minutes later. A message from Lauren. Lauren, Adam. Please call me. I didn't expect I can explain. I didn't reply. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Then I flipped the phone over and left it face down. The rest of the conference was a blur. I did what I had to. Shook hands, delivered the pitch, even cracked a few forced smiles. Ben didn't notice anything was off. He's not the type to read between lines. Probably for the best. When I got back to Omaha Sunday night, Lauren wasn't home. Just a note on the counter. Went to the store. Be back soon. I didn't wait. I packed a duffel bag. Took my essentials, clothes, work files, my laptop, passport. I didn't make a scene. I didn't leave a note. I didn't slam doors or leave the light on for her to guess. I just left. Drove across town to a furnished rental I'd found earlier that week. One bedroom, minimalist. Clean lines, soft walls, no history. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my phone again. More messages had come through. Lauren, please just talk to me. Lauren, you don't understand what you saw. Lauren, I love you. Please don't shut me out like this. But she was wrong. I understood exactly what I saw. There was no ambiguity. No misinterpretation. She wasn't confused. She wasn't cornered. She was living a double life. Smiling while it all burned behind her. And she only panicked because I caught her in the wrong script. That night, I lay in the unfamiliar bed, the kind that doesn't creak or carry ghosts. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was walking a tightrope. I felt still. Tired, yes. Angry, maybe. But still. Because now she knew that I knew. And there was no coming back from that. I didn't go home for 3 days. I stayed at the rental, neutral walls, minimalist furniture, no shared memories or reminders of who we used to be. I barely slept. Mostly stared at the ceiling or sat on the small patio letting the cold settle into my bones. I kept the place dark, lights off unless absolutely necessary. It felt right, like the mood of everything had to match what I was carrying inside. Lauren texted me every day. Sometimes twice. Short messages at first, please. Talk to me. Let's fix this. Then came the longer ones, paragraphs explaining nothing, apologizing for nothing, but full of vague phrases like complicated, not what it looked like, and my personal favorite, I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't respond. On the 4th day, she showed up. I had just gotten back from work, barely halfway out of the car when I saw her parked across the street. Her car was angled awkwardly on the curb like she'd pulled over in a hurry. She got out when I did, clutching her phone like it was a lifeline. Adam, she said. Just that. I didn't say anything. She followed me toward the stairs leading up to the door. I need to talk to you. I don't want to do this in the parking lot, I said without turning around. She hesitated. Then let me come up. I didn't want her in that space. That place was untouched by her. Clean. Not yet haunted by the memories she carried with her. But I didn't want to drag this out either. So I nodded, wordlessly, and opened the door. She walked in slowly like someone stepping into sacred ground. She looked around, visibly unsettled by the sparseness. A folded blanket on the couch. 2 plates in the drying rack. My shoes by the door, neatly lined up. This is where you've been, she asked softly. I didn't answer. I closed the door behind her and waited. She stood in the middle of the living room, twisting her fingers the way she did when she was nervous. She wasn't wearing makeup. Just jeans, a hoodie I didn't recognize, and that necklace, the silver one from the conference. The one she wore when I saw her laughing with him. I'm not going to pretend I didn't mess up, she said after a long pause. I know what you saw. And I know it must have looked Don't, I cut in, voice calm but clipped. Don't start this with what it looked like. I know exactly what I saw. And you know I know. Her eyes flicked up. She nodded once. Okay. Yeah. You're right. Another silence. I never wanted to hurt you, she said. I swear. You didn't trip and fall into an affair, Lauren. You made choices. Over and over again. I know that. Her voice cracked a little, but not in a way that felt raw. It felt controlled. Measured. You had someone in our house, I said, still standing. You brought him into our bed. You looked me in the eye for months and lied without flinching. She swallowed hard, but there were no tears. Just a kind of practiced sadness, like she was checking off emotional boxes. Do you even regret it? I asked. She looked at me like I'd asked a trick question. Of course I do. No. Don't say what you're supposed to say. I want the real answer. Right here, right now. Do you regret what you did, or just that I found out? That finally landed. Her face twisted slightly, just for a second. Then she looked down at the floor. I don't know, she said. I let the words hang in the air. Let the truth of them settle in like dust. Wow, I muttered. You actually said it. It's not that simple, Adam. It is, I said. It's exactly that simple. She didn't try to argue. She just sat down on the edge of the couch like her legs couldn't hold her anymore. I was unhappy, she said. I felt invisible. Every day I watched you pour everything into work, into deadlines, into things that didn't include me. I felt like I was fading out of my own life. And your answer was to cheat, I said. Not to talk. Not to tell me what you needed. To cheat. You wouldn't have listened, she snapped, suddenly defensive. You were always too busy. I tried to talk to you so many times, and it was like I didn't exist. I laughed, but it wasn't kind. So it's my fault. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. She rubbed her eyes with the heel of her hands, but still no tears. You know what's messed up? I said. I'm not even angry anymore. I thought I'd be furious. I thought I'd break something or scream, but all I feel is numb. She nodded slowly. That's worse. Yeah, I said. It is. She looked around the room again. So, what happens now? I don't know, I said truthfully. But I can't go back to what we were. That part's done. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, she said quickly. Therapy. Counseling. I'll end things with him. I'll block his number. It already happened, Lauren. I interrupted. You can't unring a bell. I love you. No, you don't, I said without hesitation. You loved what we had. You loved the version of me that didn't know. She stared at the floor again, her silence louder than anything else in the room. I sat down across from her, not close, just enough to look her in the eye. Did it happen more than once? I asked. She hesitated. Yes. In our house. Another pause. Yes. That word was quiet, but it echoed. I leaned back. And you want to fix this? I don't want to lose you. That's not the same as wanting to fix it. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Just sat there, the room between us heavier than any words we could pull out of our mouths. Eventually, she stood up. I should go. Probably. She moved toward the door, then turned back. If you ever want to talk, I'll reach out, I said, cutting her off gently. She nodded, hand on the doorknob, waiting like she thought I might stop her. I didn't. She left. The door clicked shut behind her. I sat there for a long time afterward, the silence returning like it had never left. Later that night, I opened the drawer next to the bed and pulled out an old photo album. We'd made it years ago, right after our honeymoon. Pictures from Italy, from wine-stained dinner tables and cobblestone alleys, from mornings spent tangled in hotel sheets and afternoons where we didn't need to say much at all. I flipped through the pages slowly, each image a **T of people I didn't recognize anymore. Not because we looked different, but because we didn't. We looked the same, smiling, happy, innocent, and somehow we still ended up here. I closed the album, slid it back into the drawer, and turned out the light. There was no explosion, no final fight, just truth, and silence, and the quiet realization that some things, once broken, never sound the same again. 2 weeks passed. I didn't hear from Lauren again, until I got a message from an unknown number. It was him, Michael. His tone wasn't angry, it was apologetic, confused. He said he thought I deserved to know the truth. Lauren told him I was emotionally abusive, unfaithful. She'd painted our marriage as a prison to justify what they were doing. I didn't know, he wrote. She lied to both of us. I didn't respond. I didn't need more stories. That night, I pulled out an old shoebox from the closet. Inside, photos, cards, notes from better years. I packed everything neatly, taped the lid shut, and labeled it in black marker. No longer mine. I didn't cry. I didn't burn it. I just stored it away in the attic, like sealing off a room that no longer served a purpose. The divorce took 20 minutes. She didn't show, signed everything remotely. No argument, no last plea. Just silence. When I stepped out of the courthouse, I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. That evening, I drove out to the old pier we used to visit in better times. I sat on the hood of my car, letting the wind skim across the lake's surface. The memories came, but they didn't hurt. They just were. I understood now that love alone isn't enough. That trust, once broken, can't always be repaired. And forgiveness? It isn't owed. What Lauren destroyed wasn't a momentary lapse. It was a choice, again and again. I didn't need closure. I had it. And in that stillness, under fading sunlight, I finally let her go. Not with hate, not with regret, just with finality.